Sabres 3, Montreal 2, a Game 4 win coming up on Locked On Sabres.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Take a breath. I know I needed one. The Sabres win Game 4 here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We will go through it all. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are, of course, free and available wherever you get your podcast. You can listen to our show wherever. You can watch our show on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are watching along there. If you're interested in our Everydayers Club, a lot of fun. Discord, ad-free version of the show. Go to lockedonsabres.supercast.com. Sneaky Joe DiBiase. Today's episode presented by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. The Sabres win Game 4, and they are heading home with the series tied at 2 games apiece. Lot to get to from this win. The Sabres were great all along the way. At 5-on-5, there are some penalty things to talk about, whether the calls were deserved, whether they were undisciplined calls. There's a lot on that front. I got a broadcast thought to get to. And, of course, how the lineup changes ended up working out. A big shift from Lindy Ruff. Konsta Helenius going into the lineup in place of Sam Carrick. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen playing in goal, and Luke Shen getting the nod on the blue line. Lot to get to on this show. But how about the vibes, the feeling of that game, getting home? And the third period was as stressed as I think I've ever been as a Sabres fan. I mean, it took years off my life. I mean, I have never smoked a cigarette, and I was as close as I ever have been after that third period. Like, give me a cig, because I needed, oh my God, I don't know what I needed. I needed something after that game was over, because it was just anxiety through the roof. I really didn't ever feel that confident. It's just kind of how the night went, right? Like, the night felt like it was built to go against Buffalo, whether that was the officiating, whether that was the broadcast, Ray Ferraro specifically, whether that was the review process in the first period. Somehow that Jack Quinn goal doesn't count, and he still does not have a goal in these playoffs. We'll talk about that review as well. But the Sabres persevered, and I thought, played a very hard-fought game. They had as many block shots in this game as any game in the postseason, and they deserve a lot of credit for digging in and winning a game like that. And we're starting to see a trend here of the same guys that are stepping up for them in big moments and that are playing the best. There's no doubt right now that through however many games, I don't know what you want the number to be here, 4, 5, 6, that for the last week or two, Zach Benson is the Buffalo Sabres' best player. It's not Tage Thompson right now. It's not Rasmus Dahlin right now. It's not even Mattias Samuelsson, who I thought had a tremendous night. Benson is their best player. He is their best player right now. And that is an incredible nod to him, because he's a good player, and he has been throughout his entire Sabres career. And he has been an analytics darling. He's been a worker. He's been a guy that is a little bit slept on because he doesn't always put up the big numbers. But here he is now in the postseason with 4 goals in 10 games played, and he's never scored more than 13 in an 82-game regular season. So the goal scoring is up. He's producing on the power play now, and every shift he is all over the puck. Of course, he is an amazing player for them right now, and he's their best guy. He's a big reason why he scores the game-winning goal in the third period. Really nice to see Benson get it. Listen to Lindy Ruff after postgame, and I kind of want to start here with what Lindy led off with, which is that they were great out of the gates, that the Sabres came ready to play in game number 4, that they were far and away the better team through 8-10 minutes of hockey, far out shooting the Montreal Canadiens. I think shots were 10-2 at one point in time. Sabres had all the chances. It should have been 2-0 in the first half of that first period. The Sabres were playing great, and they were all over the puck. I thought the top line of Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, and also Peyton Krebs, who I'll get to more so in a minute, played incredible in those first couple of shifts. I didn't love how they played after that, but they were buzzing on those first few shifts. You had shots from the point that were getting through, traffic in front, and it was all four lines. I mean, there's a couple of chances there by Benson and Doan, and they end up contributing to the goal, right? Samuelsson, it goes from Doan carrying it in, across to Norris, across to Samuelsson, who jumps up in the play. And that's one right there where, listen, I think Samuelsson's getting a little bit of heat for the Newhook goal, Alex Newhook scoring to make it 1-1 in the first period, because he left the zone when the Sabres looked like they were about to get it out. And maybe you want to argue that that was a tad early, but I'm not blaming Samuelsson on that one because of what you saw in the first goal. You got to live and die by this blue line being aggressive and jumping up into plays. It is what makes them so special offensively, is how active those guys are. So yeah, Samuelsson's cheating the zone a little bit because it does look like they're going to get it out, and they should have gotten it out. They had 4 opportunities between Malenstein and Greenway's digging in there and McLeod. Like, someone's got to get that puck out, and then you might have an odd man rush. That's why you're doing that. And by the way, real quick, while we're on the Newhook goal, Samuelsson's not the problem there. Byram is the problem. Bo Byram takes a look, sees Newhook cutting to the middle, has every opportunity to get there and win the battle, and he doesn't. And he just gets outworked on the play by Newhook. So I didn't even think Samuelsson was the culprit, really, of that goal. But on the first goal, he's jumping right up into the play to make it a 4-on-3. And sure, what's your risk? If you don't successfully enter the zone or there's a bad turnover and that puck gets caught up in Doan's feet, I mean, it could have gone the other way, that you're going to have a 2-on-1 for Montreal. And that's the risk. But what's the payoff? Okay, if we get into the zone and we get a clean pass across, I got an open one-timer across the ice with a goalie that's out of position because he's focused on the other side of the ice, and I get a goal because of the risk of Samuelsson jumping up in the play. So you got to live and die with it. So that line had a great chance, though, there. Malenstein had a great one-time look early in the first period. Like, every line was cooking in the first 10 minutes of the game. And I do think that we got to talk about the instant replay reviews, because that, I think, probably hurt the momentum of the Sabres. They are shift after shift winning against Montreal, and then they go to commercial break, first one of the game, I believe, and you take a couple of minutes there, right? And then they couldn't have done this, I guess, during commercial. Now let's go to review. That Toronto called down and the puck might have crossed the line, and we're going to spend 5 minutes looking at this play. I had not in the moment thought it went across, but I thought absolutely the right call when you merge the two replay reviews together, that Quinn scored. That puck was in the net. It was in the glove of Dobish, and that was behind the goal line. And then we get this challenge from Montreal, and Lindy said he hated the decision, and I have to agree with him. And you actually saw a lot of people defending the challenge, saying that, well, yeah, and Paul Bissonnette was one of these people who got dogged by Sabre fans online tonight, and he should have. The guy has become Drake. He's just front running with whatever team is doing better at that moment. And in that moment, he's like, yeah, and this wasn't just Bissonnette. A lot of people are saying this. Yeah, it is not a goal that should count because Quinn connects with Dobish's glove after he shoots it and pushes it in. And then we get they don't tell us why they overturned it. They just say we're overturning it. And then we get the email from NHL.com from the Situation Room a few minutes later that said, no, it was Helenius who interrupted his ability or prevented him from having an opportunity to make the save. Like, well, wait a minute. He did make the save. He was there, but the puck just happened to cross the line. What are you talking about? He didn't have an opportunity to make the save. He was there ready to make it. And you watch the replay review 1,000 times, and you are never going to find a spot here where Helenius is affecting Dobish at all to make the save. In fact, the Montreal defender coming in after the fact does way more to stop Dobish from making a clean save than Helenius did. So I think it was a horrific call, and the ultimate puck don't lie. The ultimate hockey gods saying bleep these refs in this game. Because, yeah, 1,000%, the Sabres got incredibly lucky that a Tage Thompson shoot-in the second period goes off the boards in a very funny way and goes out towards Dobish, who's in his own crease. The puck is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and lands on the top of his pad and spins back into the net. Yeah, it's a magical, lucky goal, but it's puck don't lie, because the Sabres should have had a goal earlier in the first period. They got robbed of 10 minutes of real time where they could have been continuing how well they were playing. Montreal gets to reset a little bit halfway through the first period. That goal was deserved. Maybe not in that moment, maybe not on that shoot-in, but from earlier in the first period, the Thompson goal in the second period were the hockey gods saying, yeah, wait a minute, you deserve that one. They shouldn't have taken that away from you. Here, we'll give you this one. And then the Benson goal in the third period, which technically was your second power play goal of the game. Sabres power play numbers end up looking pretty good right now in the series, and gave Benson his flowers a little bit earlier, but it's a great play overall. And that unit, good on Lindy and Seth Appert. They have tried a lot of things this year, and most of them have not worked. Having the final wherewithal, last gasp maybe of the season, what is one last thing we could try to do on this power play and have it work? They finally just decided, let's just put our two hardest working dudes on that unit and merge them with Tage, merge them with Dahlin. I don't love Quinn on that unit at all. A lot of poor decisions, but it's more about the other four, Benson and Doan. And they've also given up, I think, on the Tage one-timer. That is no longer plan A. Not to say they would never do it, but that it was always for years. Plan A is we're going to move this puck around, get Tage open, and let him blast off. That's the goal of their power play, usually. Over the last 3 games, it's very clear. The goal of their power play is to get the puck to Josh Doan on the goal line, down low. And you create a little bit of a 3-on-2 low at the net, and you're creating chances that way. That's what happens here. Quinn is boxing out his man on the side of the net. Benson is alone in front. Doan actually puts it a little bit on his front foot too much, but Benson's got the hands and has got the ability to finish on his backhand. You have a new way of attacking on this power play, and it is working. And Tage is actually doing a decent job on the faceoffs. And Norris, being the main faceoff guy and the man advantage, has not been needed as much. But in terms of battling through, the Sabres battled through not just that terrible review, they also battled through some horrific penalty calls. Now, they deserved a lot of them, and that was more so in the second period. Because in the second period, Byram high-sticking on Anderson, Dahlin interference on Caulfield, throwing him into the net, Byram a double minor for high-sticking on Tessier in the second period. Those 3 calls in the second were bad penalties by the Sabres. But in the first, they, to me, hardly deserved any of the 4 that they got. Dahlin on Goalie. That is not a penalty on Rasmus Dahlin. Sure, he's running interference there. Every team in the league does that. It's the playoffs. And maybe we've stopped saying that. They're calling light stuff in every series that I'm seeing. I don't know why the NHL decided this, but this year, you have all of these warnings to teams about scrums, which never has been the case, and you have the softest calls being made. I don't know why the NHL decided to get so soft in the playoffs, but here they are. They've decided that. So Dahlin gets interference against Caden Gooley. If you're purposely skating into him and leaning into him, I get it. That is interference. But Dahlin does the right thing. Yeah, he got in his lane on purpose, but then he starts fading away from Gooley. That is what you're supposed to do. And they called Dahlin for interference anyway. He was despondent because he's right. That was a horrible call. Jason Zucker on Joseph Veleno. Okay, you could argue that was the worst of the 4. That's another one where in past years, it's the playoffs, dude. What are you talking about? That's a penalty. Shoving a guy one little extra shove into the boards. That's not a penalty. Peyton Krebs I guess the Krebs and Bolduc matching minors is fine. Thompson, this was the worst one. Thompson on Goalie. Man, Caden Goalie, he's going to have a great time at the Academy Awards next year because that dude deserves an Oscar for tonight. Between the contact on Dahlin and throwing himself to the ground after that, and then to go down as easily as he did when Tage tapped him. He doesn't even really push off with the cross check. Again, that's one where you could sit there and say Tage made a mistake. Don't even put the ref in that situation. How can it be a mistake when in no world should that ever be a penalty? It should not be a penalty. So the refs were totally against the Sabres early in this game. And maybe there were a couple of makeup calls along the way, makeup no calls in the third period, but they usually swallow their whistles in the third anyway, so that might not have been what it was. But whatever. They were battling against the refs in this game, especially in the first period. When we come back, the guys that went in, how they played, and what should stay the same going into Game 5. That's coming up on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Kalshi. The hunt for the Stanley Cup is on, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, the championship, who's going to win it all, and more. I mean, you can take a look at individual awards and so on and so forth. Right now, I was looking at Kalshi for the price on what the market looks like for series winner, Buffalo and Montreal. And right now, Buffalo at 52%. So feeling a little good about that. That could be home ice playing into things when you're looking around on Kalshi. But again, you could look at Conn Smythe, and there's a million different things on Kalshi to get involved. And if you go for Buffalo trading at 52% to beat Montreal, meaning a $100 payout will be just a little bit less than 100, but not by much, right about the same. As the playoffs heat up, those numbers will move in real time. You could buy in or out at any time, which is always great. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of that position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app now. Use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Again, download the Kalshi app, code LOCKEDON, get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, Kalshi, trade on anything. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast, also presented by 5 Hour Energy Cotton Candy. Right now, just had a baby recently, and these late nights for me, I need a little bit of an extra pick me up once in a while. And why not mix in the classic great flavor of cotton candy? Fair's not always happening. Maybe I want a little cotton candy here, and what am I going to get? This is the opportunity. I got a sweet tooth, and I don't always want something that's super sugary. That's why Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. You get a tasty caffeine boost, 0 sugar, quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet tooth while keeping things simple and on the go. Flavor is a throwback, fruity vanilla vibe, surprisingly smooth. It's convenient too, of course. Small, portable shot, grab and go whenever you need a little bit of the pick-me-up. It's my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shots. Available online now at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. By the way, if you are wondering, I'm back at WGR on Monday, and the Sabres being alive on Monday is increasing the probability of that. Game 5 in Buffalo on Thursday, and the changes the Sabres made, I can't imagine them going back on any of them. I want to start with the one that I was most excited about, and you ended up getting a payoff on it. Even though he didn't score, Konsta Helenius was awesome. And burning the year of his entry-level deal by him playing that game tonight, to me, is not a problem at all. If anything, you could even argue it helps you because it starts the clock earlier on a guy that if he's really good, you're going to want to pay early because that's how you want to do it, right? You want to get a guy in, you want to get him on a good cap hit before his price continues to go up and the cap goes up. So if he's great, you'll want to pay him in a year or two. And if he was on an entry-level deal longer than that, you couldn't do that in the same way. So I like that this is setting up the way it is and that Lindy was willing to put him in, which, listen, that's the one that wasn't the easiest to do. Switching goalies to quote-unquote wake the team up happens all the time. Putting in a veteran defenseman who's played over 1,000 games in the league and is 36 years old with playoff experience. Coaches do that all the time. That doesn't take a lot of courage to put Luke Schenn in, even though I think really it should. What takes courage? How about putting in a kid that has not played for you since February, has only played 9 games in his NHL career, and is only 20 years old, into his first NHL playoff game on the road in that atmosphere, and putting him in a place that had been the same line for a long time. Jason Zucker, Jack Quinn, they're not going to deal with a rookie that doesn't know what he's doing, but to put him on that line too. All that took courage from Lindy Ruff, and I think he got a big payoff. He was excellent in this game. He was skating great. He should have had an assist on the overturned Jack Quinn goal, and that's a great play by him anyway, because you're a rookie and you're willing to go to the front of the net like that, take contact. He actually did take a bad cross-check on the back of the head from Arbor Xhekaj that should have been a penalty, but of course, they swallowed the whistles on the Buffalo end of things in the first period, or on the Montreal end of things. That's a great play to go to the net like that. And I thought he was pretty good defensively. Though he's better offensively than defensively. There were a couple of shifts in the third where he and Zucker got mixed up on what their defensive coverage was, and it looked like it was going to create an opportunity for Montreal. They did dig themselves out of it. But even that wasn't like a major thing. There was no major turnover or play that cost them a goal. So thought he was fine there, and he was dangerous. Getting up on those 2-on-1s in the third period, robbed by Dobish. I'm sure Helenius, watching that play back, will want to get that puck a little bit higher because it's right in his wheelhouse. It's a one-timer. He's a finisher. And he got it a little bit high, but not over the pad for Dobish, which is what you want to do there. And then the other one, it's almost about as good as you could do because that one's not in the wheelhouse. So Zucker puts that one a little bit further in his feet, and Helenius has to dig that puck out of his feet, and he gets it up and off the crossbar really close. Should have had a goal late in the game. Keeps playing like that, he'll get one. And everything else was pretty good. Lindy, by the way, trusted him to be on the ice late in the third period over Ryan McLeod. And I was wondering that, like, okay, Helenius with this line, but as the game gets whittled down, McLeod is your defensive center that's played top 3 line all year long. All right, you're going to get up by 1, and he's going to be the guy that goes out there late in the third to close it out. And that was not the case. It was still Helenius. McLeod hardly played late in that game. In fact, end of the game, Ryan McLeod played the fewest even strength minutes of any Buffalo Sabre. Even strength minutes in this game. This is a crazy stat. How much Lindy trusted Helenius and didn't get tempted to put McLeod back in. Helenius played 12 minutes and 53 seconds of even strength ice time in this game. Ryan McLeod played 4 minutes and 21 seconds. That's nuts. And that is credit to how well of a game that he did play. He also, by the way, went 4 for 6 on faceoffs, which was fine, good as well. Skated well. Remember when Michael Leone, Amerks head coach, was on our show about a year ago when the Amerks were in the playoffs, Helenius was playing fantastic in the postseason for Rochester. And he wasn't just producing offense, which he was doing in those playoffs for Rochester last year. It was only 3 games, or excuse me, it was 8 games, 6 points in 8 games last year in the postseason. And he was creating a stir. He was just getting teams into scrums and drawing penalties, and he was living in their heads. And Leone, Amerks head coach Michael Leone, compared him to Brad Marchand, which you're seeing from Benson a little bit right now, but Helenius was getting that comparison from his own head coach, Brad Marchand. And man, he looked great in this game. And there's no way you're taking him out. You're leaving him in. And I would imagine he's playing, if it continues to look anything near what it did tonight, he's going to play until they're done. Like, he's playing until the end of the season. And he should probably play ahead of Ryan McLeod, I think, going forward. He's a little bit more tenacious, a little bit more physical. And I like that about him in that spot. So great first impression in the postseason for him. And again, the other reason I didn't even mention that took a little bit of courage for me, I did not think he was that great in his last few games in Buffalo. He was great in the first few, but he had no points in his final 6 games with the Sabres. The ice time is starting to go down. There were a few more mistakes here and there, and I didn't know if it would look like that again, if he would just not really do much for Buffalo, and he certainly did. He looked great in this series, or in this game, and he should continue to play. And the numbers real quick on him that I wanted to give while he was on the ice, Konsta Helenius. The Corsi for percentage for him ended up being 45%, which was not terrible, 18-15 in favor of Montreal. Shots were 7-7 in favor of, well, nobody, it was tie. And scoring chances, 12-9 for Buffalo while he was out there. And here's the big kicker. The quality of chances while Helenius was on the ice, big advantage Buffalo. 8 high-danger chances to 2 for the Canadiens, which that leads to an expected goals for percentage for Helenius of 64.3%, which is, that's fantastic. And of the Sabres forwards, the only 2 that were better were his line mates, Zucker, Quinn, and Helenius. In fact, put it all together. Expected goal share in this game, 90% for Helenius, Quinn, and Zucker. The next best was Thompson, Krebs, and Tuck at 47%. Of course, that's only at 5-on-5. So that line was tremendous, and he was in the middle of it. All right, lastly, when we come back, I was pretty harsh about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in our last game, in our last show. He was fantastic. I want to talk about how fantastic, and also why you can take your victory lap on me if you want, but I didn't say he'd be bad in this game. That wasn't the reason that I was scared to put him in. And I'll reset that as well. Coming up on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode is presented by the Game Time app. And there's a lot coming up. You got a Game 5 this week. I mean, football schedules out or starting to come out. So a lot of football tickets that we're going to have to start thinking about and planning for. And there's nothing like, of course, just returning to the hockey team. Nothing like playoff hockey. Intensity, this rivalry that's getting going, the crowd, just different when you're in the building. Playoffs are some of the best moments in sports, and being there in person is something that every fan should experience. I'm going to be there Game 5. Maybe you want to be as well. Game Time makes finding tickets incredibly easy. High demand games. Game Time guarantee means you're going to get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. The app is super easy to use. Find tickets fast. The pricing is all in, so what you see is what you pay. No surprise fees. And one of my favorite features is the seat view. It's exactly what you're going to look at, especially when you're traveling around. Maybe you're in an arena for the first time. You've never been there before, and you want to see what this angle is going to look like. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Last guy I got to give flowers to, who was absolutely great in this game, was Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He was fantastic. I thought, probably should have had the second goal at the end of the first period. He opened up his 5-hole there, overplayed the position a little bit. Saw Bulldog tweet about that as well, that he got caught there overplaying, and that's why the 5-hole was open. But I said this out loud. I don't think I tweeted it or put it in our Discord, but that the difference between Luukkonen and Lyon is the power plays at the end of the first and at the beginning of the second. Because Luukkonen, he lets that goal in at the end of the first. I'm saying I don't think Alex Lyon lets that goal in. He's more technically consistent. I don't think he's going to get caught overplaying in that way that Luukkonen did. And that Caulfield goal, I don't think happens to Alex Lyon. On the other hand, the saves that he made on Caulfield in the second, I don't think Alex Lyon's getting, especially the one where he came all the way across the ice, made a great blocker save. That's a save where I think Luukkonen makes it, and I don't think Lyon is getting over there and has the size to get over there and the speed to get over there. So maybe it ends up evening out. It might have just been different goals that ended up going in on one or the other. Either way, Luukkonen was fantastic. He was seeing pucks well. He made those couple of critical game-changing saves. A lot of confidence instilled. I mean, he right out of the gates in the first period, you get an odd man rush by Montreal, and he comes out, challenges, was playing aggressive, makes the save, looked confident in this game, was tracking the puck pretty well. I only noticed 2 times in the game where he kind of lost it. And he also found one where it would have been a goal, I think, where he paddles it off the goal line. Luke Schenn had thrown a guy into the net. I think it was Suzuki. And I think that would have counted because the net getting thrown off was by Schenn. I think that would have counted. So you got to give Luukkonen credit for that one as well. So he was fantastic. The numbers absolutely back that up in this game. If you go all situations, expected goals by Montreal was 3.59 and Luukkonen allowed 2. So about a goal and a half better than you would expect. So good game from Luukkonen. But again, that wasn't really my problem with the decision to put him in. My fear all along, and you could go back in our last show and find it. Not that I'm really that worried about, receipts. But if you want, the reason why I was a little afraid, even very afraid, to put Luukkonen in was trusting him the rest of the way. And that if you put him back in, especially when Lyon hadn't really earned losing the net, if you put Luukkonen back in and he looks good and he keeps going further and further into the series, he scares me a lot more than Alex Lyon does for letting in a soft one or imploding for an entire game. And if you're putting him between the pipes in a game 6 or a game 7, I think him earning that opportunity via game 4 is not maybe the best. But what am I going to be really that upset that he looked great and earns more opportunity? I don't quite want to go that far, but that was my fear originally, is that he's going to get into these big games late in the series, and that's where he's going to really lose you. Now, what Lindy could do that I would prefer that one of our Discord listeners and one of our Twitter followers both suggested was, well, maybe this is the intro to a rotation. That you'll go back to what you did in the regular season. Lions played well. Luukkonen now has a game under his belt playing really well. So let's go every other again. Why not? Let's go Lyon in game 5. And as someone that just kind of laid out why Luukkonen scares me, the emotional up and down and inconsistencies throughout his entire career. If you did that, giving Lyon game 5 and game 7, that is where I'd want to be, rather than Luukkonen getting the goal for a potential game 7. So that's an idea, but isn't it so hard for Lindy Ruff to not go back to Luukkonen? I said this after Lyon went in and had a couple of good games. How could you go back to Luukkonen? You got to ride the guy that's playing well. And in the playoffs, and you're a coach, it's why it really rarely ever happens. It's so hard to not play a goalie who's coming off a really good game and switch to the other guy when you're in a playoff series. It's really hard. And I would understand why Lindy would go back to Luukkonen in game 5. Right now, I mean, I guessed wrong about this game. I thought the way Lindy talked at the end of game 3, Lyon was going back in. He talked him up, said none of this was on him. But then Luukkonen played. Surprised me. I guess I would say right now I think Luukkonen will play game 5. But Lindy threw me off a little bit in game 4, so I want to say I am also bracing for the possibility of Lyon playing game 5. Like, in my head, and this is totally just made up speculation, in my head, it's like 60-40 that Luukkonen's going to play in game 5. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it right now. But I'm expecting, if you made me bet right now, I'm betting Luukkonen for game number 5. which is fine. He just, again, I've watched him too many times throughout his career. I don't think I'll ever fully trust the guy in his entire Sabre career unless he goes months, years without having the types of moments that we saw, at times early in this regular season last year and then game 2 against Boston. So we'll see what Lindy ends up doing. And Luke Schenn finally didn't play a lot. That was probably predictable that he was not a solution to solving Montreal's speed at all, but that he probably wasn't going to play all that much. And in this game, he played 7 minutes. It was a 5-man rotation, and even strength, it was more even a 4-man rotation, but 5, you had Schenn playing 4 minutes of even strength ice time. The next lowest was Timmins at 13:56, which is a pretty wide disparity. Does Schenn stay in for game 5? I don't know. It's late. I got a baby. It's going to be waking up in 2 hours for feeding time. So maybe we'll talk about what they do with Luke Schenn next time. I'd still go to Metza or to somebody else, but maybe Schenn continues to play. And actually, real quick on Schenn, does he also deserve a little bit of flowers? I mean, it's tough because he only played 4 minutes, but he broke even. Actually, expected goals, he did way better, but shot attempts were 4-4, shots were 3-2 when he was on the ice in those 4 minutes. But scoring chances were 4-1, so you get an expected goal share of 86. So credit to Luke Schenn, I guess, in this game. And finally, Jack Quinn's never going to score. Never. He had so many chances once again and was unable to find the back of the net. He's never, ever going to score. All right, it's late. I'm going to get out of here. Enjoy watching the highlights back a million times because I know I'm going to do that. And we'll talk on what we should expect for Game 5. The Sabres tie the series at 2. Interested in our Discord? Want to keep the conversation rolling? Go to LockedOnSabres.supercast.com. Sign up there today, and we'll talk tomorrow on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now your #1 sports podcast network.